Great, fantastic. My name is Joseph Anthony, and I'm a professional astrologer and a professional psychic medium. And today I'm going to be talking about relationships, what makes it work from an astrological standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from just understanding human nature. Okay, because we've all had relationships that didn't work. We've been in them, we were attracted for one reason or another. And from an astrological standpoint, how many of you know about astrology? Know anything about astrology? Okay, good, pretty well-informed group. And so what astrology does is it gives you a foundation from which you work from, okay? So let's just say, for instance, one is born a Cancer. Cancer is a water sign. It has to do with emotions and feelings. So if one is viewing the world from emotions and feelings, right, and they meet somebody who's, let's say, a fire sign, like a Sagittarius, who's all about action and doing and going, do you think that Cancer is going to get the emotional, the emotional response that it needs to feel satisfied in a relationship? Does that make sense? Where this one sign or this one person is sort of off doing their own thing, going off, traveling and exploring, and here's the sort of Cancer, which needs nurturing and coddling and security, not getting what they need. So I'm just using this as an example of how relationship dynamics work from an astrological standpoint. So I'll go a little bit more in depth. The primary reason that relationships are not working is because there's a lot of fear involved in the unknown. In other words, does this person love me enough? Does this person care about me enough? I'm not sure, and there's always that battle that goes on between the egos. And the ego is that part of us that says, I'm going to protect myself, you see? So when it comes to relationships, the first thing we have to understand is we attract that other person because we see in them what we see in ourselves. Does that make sense? It's like the universe is bringing a female or male version of you right to your face and showing you, hey, look, this is what I look like inside. There's qualities that this person has that I have, that I see in them, that I see in myself. Make any sense? You see? And then they may have qualities that you're missing, that you have, and vice versa. So if you approach relationships from that, perspective, relationships don't become that difficult anymore, It's usually that first, 3 to 6 months where we get into a relationship. The first 3 months, it's like, wow, ooh, the lights, the eyes are wide open. It's like, oh, ooh, piece of cake, It's like you're so drawn to each other because you're making a connection on a deeper level, on a soul level. Because that's what relationships are meant to do. They're meant for us to look deep within ourselves, and then the two of you come together to transform or to create. That sort of the energy between the two of you. Make any sense? So the primary thing about relationships is, one, to realize when we meet somebody or we connect with somebody, we have a connection immediately because there's something inside of them that you resonate with. Okay? Number two, relationships are learning experiences. They teach us about ourselves. Okay, when you go through a relationship and you go through ups and downs with a partner, you're learning about yourself, the give and take, the love, the compromise, the need to interact on some level. You see, and that's a learning experience. You're learning about yourself as well as to caring for another being. Okay, then there's a third dynamic here. I have to interject this from a sort of a spiritual standpoint. There is something called karma. How many of you have heard of that word? Karma. You may have had an experience with somebody in a past life that changes the dynamics of this relationship, or you haven't finished something from a past life that you're bringing into this lifetime. For instance, I've had clients that they meet somebody and they cannot let go of them for some reason. How many of you have had that experience or known somebody? It's like they are magnetically pulled to each other. And then when I do a reading for them, that's because they were married their entire lives in a past life. You see? So they can't break that bond that they reconnected again in this lifetime. So there's an element of karma involved. Then we have another scenario where we have people that are afraid to get into relationships. They meet somebody and they're friendly, and the next thing you know, they back away. They're like, because maybe they've had a horrific experience in one of their past lives, or a lover has died, and I've had those too. And so in this lifetime, they were so heartbroken from that other experience that they come into this lifetime with this wound, saying, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to go through that experience again. You see? So we carry that around as well. Then there's another one. There's a third dynamic here. The abusive relationships, where I've seen people are attracted to these bad boy type of behaviors, or these women that are just wild and like to drink and party and stuff like that. And that element has to do with a relationship that was so intense and so passionate in a past life that they're drawn to that same energy, that same dynamic of chaos, because that's what they feel, that they have to live on that edge. It has to be exciting, otherwise I'm not going to be a part of it. You see? So, there's different variations that go into relationships, but the primary ones is that you're connecting with another soul to learn something about yourself and to share this emotion or this idea which we call love. Now, what is love? Okay, let's ask the big the $64,000 question. What is love? All right, love is energy. It's a loving energy. This is who we are at our nature, at our core being. We are this energy we call love, or even more so, what we call God. Okay. Now I've researched this up and down, back and forth. If you really want to understand what love is, just go to YouTube. Type in near-death experiences, and you'll hear all these people that have had them, and how they've left the body, they've reconnected with the light, they've reconnected with these beings, they felt so at peace, they understood everything that they ever experienced. That's connecting with the higher level of consciousness, which we call God. And I'm not saying that's the supreme God, but I'm saying there's a connection you realize that we all have. So love is our true nature. Okay? This energy we call love is our true nature. That's who we are. When you look at a child when they're born and they're, small, and they don't know hate. They don't know any, discontent. They haven't learned anything yet. They come into this lifetime. Perfect example also is animals. Look at a dog. Most dogs, 90% of them, are all happy-go-lucky, and all they want to do is care and give and, share. That's our true nature. But over time and the soul's experience of these dynamics with relationships, it tends to taint us or change our perspective, you see? So the idea is, when you meet another being, is to look at them and say, here's another loving soul, or another energetic soul, another being that's going through their experience. How do I fit in? What are the qualities they have that I have? How do we connect on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, on a psychological level? You see? If you ask these questions at the beginning, the first 6 months or so, you will begin to see the relationship dynamics, because it's you in another version. Make any sense? Okay? So we have to understand that we are these loving beings, these loving energy beings. That's who we are at our core. All right? And that when you meet another being, that you look at them that way. And believe me, trust me, when you walk around looking at everyone as a loving being, your whole perception changes. You no longer start looking at, oh, that one's got bad hair, or I'm not fond of that one, or that. You start looking at everyone as just balls of energy, of light, of loving energy and light, and your perception changes. You begin to realize who you really are. And of course, and I say this to all my clients, I say meditate. Meditate on who you really are, which is, I am a spiritual being having a human experience. And I will do the best that I can, because this is all an experience. You see, this lifetime, this place right now, we're experiencing in this room, we're connecting in this room to an idea, to a concept. You see? So everything we do is an experience, and the same goes for relationships. The relationships, when we, they're at the most deepest intimate level, not just physically, but when we meet somebody and we connect with them, we are literally getting as close as we can to the source outside of ourselves. Make any sense? Because one thing that they've all said, these near-death experiences, is that once they passed the threshold, they went through the tunnel of light, they immediately connected and realized, they saw their entire lives flash before their eyes, every experience they've ever had, every relationship they've ever had, everything they've ever done, the good and the bad. Denyon Brinkley calls it the life review, a panoramic life review. But once you get past all of that, then he says, and this is just one guy, he says that I realized I was connected to everything. Okay? And that's the truth. We're all connected to this source. So whatever happens to you or you or you, if we're in that group or in that connection, it's going to affect you and you and you and you. You see, on some level. It's like a giant matrix. As Greg Braden, I don't know if you know who Greg Braden is. He wrote a book called The Divine Matrix. It's more of a scientific book, but he talks about how we're all connected on some level, consciously, you see? So if we start looking at relationships from a conscious level, we begin to understand who we are and what our connections are, okay? I'm just saying it gets a lot easier when you use some sort of symbolic tool to understand the dynamics of that person and this person, you see? And that's why I love astrology. I love numerology, okay? Because they literally show you what the dynamics of this individual's energy and this individual's energy work together. How does it work together? You see? And it makes a difference. And that's what I teach also in my other classes, is that everything is energy. And if you understand the symbolism, because that's what astrology is, that's what tarot is, that's what numerology is. They're all symbolic ways of looking at this source, this energy source. You get to understand the way it operates, the dynamics of everything in your life, what you attract to you, why you attract it to you, or what you repel, and the type of people you keep bringing in. You see? So I'll give you another example. If one is to say an Aquarian, any Aquarians here? Okay, if Aquarian, the nature of Aquarian has to do with thinking outside the box, being different, being friendly, you see, or having unique experiences. That's the nature of an Aquarian, being drawn to the unusual and being very friendly. When it comes to relationships, Aquarians are usually very friendly oriented, okay? So what would be a compatible sign for an Aquarian, let's just say? And I'll go through the list just to give you an overview of each sign so you haven't, so I don't want to leave anybody out. And I'll start with the beginning. I'll start with Aries. Okay, any Aries here? 1, 2, 3. Aries, this is how they work in relationships. Aries sees something and they have to go after it. Okay? They see, a beautiful face and a nice behind, whatever. They got to go get it. Because it's in their nature. Aries rising qualifies too, or an Aries moon in astrology. Aries is all about action. They're a fire sign, which is all about action. So when they see something, they immediately leap and go towards that which they are drawn to. But the problem with Aries when it comes to relationships is they get bored. If they don't find the right person, they get bored. Oh, all right, that fire's gone. Let me move on to this other idea or concept, or let me ignore them. Stay in a relationship and totally ignore that person. You see? Now, I'll stick with the fire signs. The next fire sign is Leo. Any Leos here? Okay. Leo is compatible with Aries, okay, because they're both fire signs. They understand that you get bored, I'm going to go do this. And Leos will go, I get bored, I'm going to go over there too. But when we get together, there's a lot more fire. You see? So compatibility for an Aries or a Leo would be a good idea, a good match. The other fire sign is Sagittarius. Any Sagittarius here? Okay? These are the three fire signs. They symbolically represent action and fire and chemistry. So when you meet another fire sign, for instance, or have it in their chart somewhere, you immediately have a connection because you know that that's very similar to you. You could interact with them a lot easier, you see? So it's good to know a person's chart or dynamics before you get involved in them, because chances are, you're going to see the qualities in them already. But let me switch gears here a second, and I'll continue the compatibility. The next thing to understand is, all right, so let's say you don't meet another fire sign, you meet some other sign that's compatible with fire. Now, element-wise, the next one I want to talk about is air, okay? Gemini. Any Geminis here? No. Gemini, Libra, any Libras? Okay, 2 Libras, and Aquarius. All right? These are the air qualities. In other words, they like to think. Communication. Now, from a symbolic standpoint, does fire and air go well? Anyone? Fire, air breathes the fire, helps the fire, so on and so forth. Symbolically, they mesh well together. So let's say, for instance, if you're one of these air signs, communication is very important because it's air. Air represents the need to interact, ideas, concepts, thought. And so a fire sign, one of these 3 that I mentioned, Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius, would get along well with an air sign because they're natural. There's a natural compatibility between the two. You see? So it's important to understand the dynamics. Now let's add another element into this. Let's add water. Okay? Pisces, anybody? Cancer? Scorpio. Okay. So what happens, now these are all the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. What happens with a water sign and fire? What happens to water and fire?
Divorce.
What's that? Divorce? That's one way of looking at it, sure. Right, exactly. Either the water's going to boil or the water's going to put out the fire. You see, it doesn't quite work as well. When I look at a chart and I see where all the planets are, it's important to know those dynamics because everyone's not just one sign. There's more dynamics involved. But I'm giving you the overview and I'm giving you an understanding of how we communicate, how the different signs communicate. So here you are with these 3 water signs who are all about emotions and feelings. And here we are, let's keep using the fire signs. They're all about action and doing. And if they're stagnant or they're not moving, and here you have this emotionally needy, I'm not saying needy, but emotionally responsive individuals that need attention and affection and being held and touched and an emotional connection. Can you see the dynamics sort of clashing with each other? But that's not always the case, but I'll explain that later. But there's the elements and the symbolism of it. Now we have the 4th element, which is Earth. We have Taurus. Any Taurus here? Taurus, Capricorn, or Virgo. This is about foundation building. This is about structure. This is about building the home, building the foundation from scratch. Now, out of all those elements, okay, let's go back to the Aries. Fire and earth can work together because they're really not, clashing with each other, you see? But it's not the perfect connection. What other element would work very well with earth sign? Anybody? Take a guess? What's that? Water. Earth and water make mud, but but they seem to work. Mud is good, but they seem to work well together. You see, from a basic symbolic standpoint. So for instance, that connection would be better, just like the air signs would do well with the fire signs. Now, how would the air do with earth signs? Kind of iffy. It's not. Again, it's neutral. But again, I'm talking about just general basic understanding of that. And the same with numerology. If we wanted to go into numerology, for instance, if we're a 1, okay, if your birthday, and this is how you do the numerology, you take your birthday, you reduce it down to 1 number. Okay, unless it's an 11 or a 22, then you don't reduce it anymore. But you reduce it down to 1 number. A 1, independent, self-sufficient, doesn't need anybody. Okay, but when they meet a number that's associated with that, like a 4, 1 and 4 do well together. You see, because they know that they don't really need anybody, and 4s symbolically represent safety or security and foundation building. So there's a compatibility there. And I don't need to go into, like, for instance, 2. 2s are all about partnerships, you see? Anybody know their numerology here? You know what?
3.
3, okay. We'll get to 3 in a minute. But 2, what's compatible with a 2? A 4. You know, symbolically. A 6, an 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. You know, they're compatible numbers symbolically. Okay. A 3 is all about communication, a gathering. 3 people. You know, communicating, exchanging ideas. Also compatible with a 6 and a 9. 3, 6, 9. You know, again, it's a symbolic way of looking at it from a relationship standpoint. You see. But I love the astrology because when I have a chart in front of me and I see like a person is an Aries and then they have a Cancer moon, you know, I could see the dynamics at work here. You see, like somebody with a Aries with a Cancer moon is at odds with themselves emotionally. They got this Cancer that's fire that wants to go, 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 and then they got the moon that's putting out the fire constantly. You see? You see how? Or let's use another example. You know, let's say a Scorpio with, you know, born a Scorpio and has a moon in Taurus or something, okay? Here's a water sign and a moon in Taurus, which can work well together, but the difference there is that Scorpio and Taurus are opposites in the zodiac. So there's always that conflict with the emotions and the feelings and the ideas, and it goes back and forth. But there's usually a lot of chemistry. Okay? So what I'm getting at is, when it comes to relationships, know the person that you're getting involved with. Number 1 is a reflection of you. Okay? Just when you meet them, just go, look at that mirror. look at that mirror image of me, you know, on some level. Okay? The next question you should ask is, what are the qualities that they have that I'm missing? You see? And vice versa. If you approach the relationship from that standpoint, you'll get a better understanding of you and them. And then, you know, later on, if you want to come to somebody like myself and do an astrological chart or a numerology chart, and you say, well, what's my compatibility here? What's my karma with them? What connection do I have with this person? You know, we could tell a lot about that. The past life, present life, the type of relationships you could have. Because there's a difference. You know, there could be romantic relationships, there could be working relationships, there could be life lessons that need to be learned from a relationship. You know, especially when we're young and we don't know anything, you know, and we have the goo-goo eyes. Oh, I'm dating this one, and you know, and all of a sudden 6 months down the line there's anger, tears, and frustration. You know, we're all learning. We're all learning to interact. We're all learning the dynamics of each other's energy. You see? But I believe that the real relationships don't really start until you're in your 30s and 40s. And what I mean by that, take it from experience. I've been married. But you don't have enough experience early on in life. You think you know what you want. You think you know who you are. But as you get older, into your 30s, and you've gone through a couple of experiences, some people just say, I'm never doing that again. That's a mistake. But you get to see the mistakes you made. You get to see how different you were back then. Okay? And as you become more spiritually opened, you say, that was an experience. I learned so much from that. The next person that comes in is going to match that frequency or that level. You see? So the relationships become more fulfilling in the mid-30s, late 30s, and on, because there's more of an appreciation for all the experiences we've already had. Make any sense to everyone? Everyone here looks like they're over 30? Okay. All right, 31. 31, okay. So, anyway, so just giving you an overview of relationships and how the dynamics work, all right? Your relationships are Leo with Aquarius. All opposites attract each other. You two are opposites in the zodiac. So all opposites see each other. They see qualities in each other right away. It's like, oh, oh, that person, there's something about them I got to connect with, you know. So there's a total understanding with opposites in the zodiac, okay? Your opposite as a Sag is a Gemini. So you'll see qualities in those individuals you attract in your life that love to talk, to communicate, because there's a part of you that, you know, does that as well. Scorpio, for you, a Taurus, you know, you would see qualities in them that you see in yourself, and maybe there's qualities you're missing that they're missing. You know, you're interacting, you're showing that Taurus what they need to do, and vice versa. You see, so all opposites in the zodiac really do show us what some of the qualities that we need to kind of follow or change about ourselves. Make any sense? All right. Any questions? Yes. Seven. Sevens are very spiritual. Well, no, sevens. What? Kind of. A 7 and a 9. Actually, 7 and a 9 usually works well. One and a 9. One and a 7 sometimes works well. Because sevens are very independent. It's like a Cancer. You know, they got to find the right mix. A 5 and a 7 usually work well. It depends. It really depends. But, and just, you know, you can't just base it on the numerology, even though I like numerology and it's very accurate. I think the astrology is even more accurate because how many of you have seen an astrology wheel? The 12 looks like a pizza pie. Each one of those areas represents an area of your life, you see? So when I look at a chart, or an astrologer looks at a chart, we see the kind of qualities or dynamics the individual has. And so when we look at the compatibility chart, we see if those dynamics work really well. Where in numerology, you get the basic gist of a 1 or 2 or 3, you know, but there's no layout to say this fits in with this, you know, unless you do the longer version charts, you know, the life path, you know, all of that stuff, which works too. It's very good. But for me, I obviously prefer the astrology end of it, you see. So, was there another question? Did you have another question? Sexuality?
That was my talk.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Gemini, Libra. How's that?
Geminis and Libras usually work well together because they're both air signs. So communication is very vital in a Gemini-Libra relationship. Yes?
How about Gemini and Sagittarius?
That's the opposite sign. Yes, they can work well together. There's always a little friction with opposites because they're trying to resist. It's like magnets. You know, when you put the polarities of magnets in opposite, you know, polarity, they will stick to each other, right? And then it's hard to pull them apart. But sometimes they're too much alike. You know, and I'm talking about the magnets, I'm talking about the people, especially between Gemini and Sagittarius, that they repel each other because they see the qualities they don't want to see in each other, you see? So, what? Twin souls, twin flames?
Twin souls, twin flames, and soulmates are the same thing.
They're pretty much the same thing. You know, when people talk about twin souls or twin flames, that's another soul that looks like you or mirrors you in some way, emotionally, psychologically, okay? You could see the same qualities in them, all right? What was the other one? Twin flames? Soulmates. Soulmates is somebody you really gravitate with, and you know that this person is going to be in your life for a very long time, and maybe you've already had that experience with them for a very long time, and they've just come back in, you see? Remember, this all goes back to the past life stuff, depending on the dynamics of your relationship. You may have a past life that's so strong that you can't overcome it in this lifetime, but maybe you're supposed to learn something from it, okay? Yeah. Gemini, Aries are a good match because you got the fire and you got the air, so it's a natural blending. Also, both of them are very high energy. Geminis have trouble sitting still, so do the Aries. So you both have that dynamic working for you of keeping busy, doing ideas. You know, so that usually works well. You know, basic works well. But let me get back to, you brought up the sexuality, but. As far as the sexuality goes, again, the same thing goes for the compatibility in the astrological, you know, symbolism. If you're a fire sign or you're a water sign, you value more action. Fire signs represent more action, excitement, in terms of the physical relationship, where earth signs are more grounded, more practical, not as adventuresome, like, doing something risky, going outside or whatever. Cancers are more of want the feeling to be there. The feelings have to be there in order to become more intimate with someone. They have to feel the connection, you see. And then, of course, you have the air signs, which it has to be all mental. These are the lovers that like to talk while sex, or fantasize about something as you're telling a story while doing. you see, so you could see how the dynamics of each sign interacts also on a personal, personal relationships. And the same goes true for business relationships. You take these same dynamics I just described, and you'll see when if you're going to do a business partnership, or you're going to partner up with somebody in business, again, it would be smart to get some sort of astrological reading or an idea of that other person and if they fit well, you see? Because again, in astrology, I could tell when two people come together what the dynamic of that relationship is going to be, And it's like night and day, right away. If one has a Aries this and a water that, and they're like, okay, here we go. They're gonna have conflict. Or if it really matches up well, it could be great, So sometimes it could be too good, It's like let's say too much grounding, like too much Taurus, too much Virgo, too much Capricorn. The dynamics of the relationship never changes because they're just so comfortable with it. You see? So you got to be careful of that too. It's just walking a fine line. Yes?
Would that be the same as for Aries and Aries?
Aries and Aries is interesting, yeah. Aries is very independent. So if they meet another Aries, okay, it's like you come together, do what you have to, and then you go to separate rooms. It's like, okay, yeah, great. All right, see you later. It's that dynamic. So you want me to go through the compatibility? I'll just go quickly right through them. Aries and Aries, I just gave you that. Let's say Taurus and Taurus. Any Taurus here? Taurus and Taurus can be a little dull and boring. Just easy going. Let's go eat. Let's have sex and go to sleep. It's just like real simple stuff. Two Geminis, they just talk all the time. Just communicate. It's just a need to talk about anything and everything. You see? Two Cancers together, they're probably glued at the hip. Holding hands, emotional connection. These are the people you see when you're walking down the street, are arm in arm. Like over the shoulder type thing. That's their strong connection. Two Leos, they're all walking with their chest out like this, with their hair all puffed up. But they're very, look at us, we're beautiful. Look at our hair. That's two Leos together. Two Virgos together, that's like having two nuns walking down the street. Seriously, Virgo is associated with, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but two Virgos together, because Virgo represents the virgin or purity, they may not be as expressive in showing the world who they are. They'll be like, okay, all right. Yeah. You can always tell two Virgos. It's just like, okay, hon, yeah, what are we doing next? And they're standing over here and nobody's touching anything. Anyway. Two Libras. Two Libras are like, it's like a romance. It's an ongoing romance of just being in love with the idea of being in love. So right away, two Libras dating each other is like, let's get married tomorrow. And they're like, okay, let's do it. Leo is the marriage sign. Okay? Think about this for a second symbolically, the scales. Libra represents the scales. When there's nobody in your life, the Libra is like this. Right? So as soon as they find somebody, it's like, oh, I found my balance, I found my partner. Okay, that's it, I'm marrying for life. But we do know that doesn't work too often. Two Scorpios, you can't get them out of the bedroom. Let's see. Scorpio is known for sexuality. Okay. Two Sagittarius, traveling the world, exploring every angle, taking every college class and course you could imagine. They love to learn. Love to know, explore, philosophy, politics. They'll constantly be talking about any one of these topics. Okay, that's two Sagittarians together, but they'll be fun and adventuresome. Let's go hiking. Let's go, there's more of a dynamic with two Sagittarians, you see. Who's next? Capricorns. Owning a business together. Okay, two Capricorns together, it's all business. But there's a mutual respect for each other. Okay, these are the guys that create, large corporations or something along those lines, like a husband and wife that are very dynamic and they're very business minded, or two doctors together. Capricorns do very well as doctors, you see. So the dynamics between two Capricorns in a relationship can be very successful, very driven to accomplish and achieve. Well, when it comes to romance, they keep that, because they're an earth sign, they keep that all to themselves, they don't not necessarily demonstrate it in public, like say two Leos, Two Aquarians, those are the fun couple. Those are the ones that, Aquarians do things differently. Okay, if you ever go to one of the big cities and you see the kids with the pink hair, leather jacket, chains, one side of the head shaved off, that's an Aquarian. Okay, they just do things differently. In relationships, it's the same thing. They want to shock people into getting the attention or keeping it fun and exciting, but in a different and unusual way. Not you two. but that's just the dynamics of an Aquarian couple. And again, because it's an air sign, they both love to communicate. And Pisces, they're totally in dreamland, because Pisces is about dreams and fantasies. And when they look at their partner, they're looking at them with these big goo-goo eyes. Oh, ooh, like they're just seeing the shiny lights, coming in. So they just totally admire their partners, But it may not be based in reality, but there is a strong sort of psychic connection, a strong emotional connection, again, because Pisces is about emotions and feelings, just like Cancer and Scorpio are, you see? So again, it's all about the connection and what we need to experience with that person. Okay, I just gave you the symbolism behind it. And so if you find somebody that you're interested in or you have an attraction to, ask yourself the basic questions. What are the qualities that person has that I have? And what am I here to learn with them? Okay, but the biggest thing that you should follow is your gut feeling. Your soul knows when it meets somebody and it's going to have a connection with it. Okay, it just knows it. It's not here, it's here. This region right here, not down here, here, okay? It's here. You understand? Sometimes it's down there, but it's here. That's the one that knows, okay? It just knows. And you'll be drawn into that direction or that person's life in some way. The question is what type of relationship is it going to be? Is it going to be a romantic one? Is it going to be a spiritual one where it's not really romantic, but just a wonderful connection with somebody, Is it going to be a partnership of some sort, business or so on? You came together to do something on a grander scale, you see? If we ask those questions at the beginning of a relationship or, meeting somebody new, it'll make a hell of a difference. We won't have as many, frustrations and irritation. And remember this, folks, everything is cyclical. We go through cycles, okay? So, if you meet somebody, let's say on a new moon, there's a good chance that it'll last. If you meet somebody on a full moon, there's not a very good chance it's going to last, because you're kind of, it's a difficult energy. It's a difficult time to meet people under those conditions. You see, so but anyway, any other questions? I hope I was able to give you a little insight to what the dynamics of relationships are like from a symbolic standpoint, and to give you some tips on basically how to navigate your relationships. You'll know when the relationship is over because there's something void. It's just like something inside of me is telling me that this relationship has gone as far as I could go. But that's okay too, because you've learned and experienced something with that person. It may be for 20 years, it may be for 5 months. You see, in this day and age, that's something to be said, because everything's happening so fast. So anyway, I want to leave you with that. Just pay attention, ask the questions when you meet somebody, and see what you need to experience with each other. Okay? Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.